pianist, John Lenehan is one of the most sought-after musicians of his generation. As a soloist, he's played with all the major British orchestras, and as a chamber musician and accompanist, he's partnered some of the greatest musicians in the world. He composes and he arranges music too, and he's got a real interest in film music, and I'm delighted that he's joined me here today for one of my classical conversations. Well, welcome, John.
Not embarrassing, yes.
Not embarrassing at all.
Well, it's very nice to be described so glowingly.
Well, it's lovely to chat to you. And I'm going to start off by talking about your musical education, because that's kind of what my series focuses on. So, when did you start learning the piano, and what was the kind of catalyst?
Well, I was about 8 when I started, but I'd already at that stage played the recorder, because everyone did at school,
yes.
My generation anyway, and I tried to teach myself to play the guitar and the clarinet,
right.
Both of which were lying around at home. Didn't really succeed in any way, shape or form, and then the piano came along, and I was very much attracted to that, and I was also attracted to the violin at the same time. So
right.
I learned both instruments together.
Okay. It's like almost like a joint first study.
Yes, and I continued that right the way through college.
Did
actually. The violin gave way to viola at the sort of around about 16, 17, and I was quite a keen viola player at college for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Gradually it tailed off.
I was going to say, so what was the light bulb moment then? When did you decide, I've got to become a pianist, and that's it? Or was there one?
I don't think there was one, actually. I think that it only very gradually sort of became apparent to me that what I really enjoyed doing was playing chamber music.
Yes.
And right the way through my teens, I played chamber music as a string player in orchestras, and that for me was the most satisfying musical experiences that I had in my teens. It was just great. I was a member of the London School Symphony Orchestra, and with them it was terrific standard. And we had conductors like Sir Andrew Davis and Simon Rattle, and all sorts of people would come along and coach us for quite a long time, actually, not just turn up on a concert and conduct that. And we'd had days and days of rehearsal with these people.
Wonderful opportunity.
Yes.
Wow,
yeah.
gosh. So which teachers do you think then were probably the most influential in your piano playing, would you say?
Oh, I was very fortunate to have really inspiring teachers from the age of 14 or so.
Right.
At 14 I was auditioned for a place at the Centre for Young Musicians, which was a Saturday school run by the Inner London Education Authority, which no longer exists. Centre for Young Musicians, I'm happy to say, does exist still. It's part of the Guildhall and operates as a Saturday school. In my day, though, it was a very altruistic thing. It was free for any talented musician in the London area. And we had lessons. I remember my timetable was an hour's lesson on the piano, an hour's lesson on the violin, music appreciation, oral, a good quality lunchtime concert given by professionals usually, then string orchestra in the afternoon. Fantastic day.
Gosh. That'll be amazing. Wish we had that today or similar.
Yes, well, centre is there, but it's not free anymore. That's the big difference.
No.
But they still do a fantastic job.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I certainly looked forward to my Saturdays.
I bet you did, yes. So how did you develop your technique then? Did you learn the difficulties within each work, or did you furiously practice Czerny's and Hanons?
No. I didn't furiously practice at all, actually, until I was at college.
Did you not? No?
Not really, no. Although I do remember my teacher at the Centre for Young Musicians, John Bigg, sitting down with me one day and being very serious and saying, look, you're talented, but you've got to work a lot harder. If you want to be a pianist, then you have to work harder. And that obviously sort of struck a chord, because I remember it still.
Yes. And did that make you go off in the right direction? Did you start to practice very hard?
I think it did, yes.
And that was it?
Yeah, and about that time I had an opportunity to play at the Purcell Room for the first time. So that was something serious to focus on.
Yeah. So in your musical education, what would you say was the most important thing? Playing in festivals, competitions, going to a particular college? What was the kind of thing that inspired you the most?
I did go into festivals and competed and played the same piece as everyone else did for 20 or 30 people playing the same piece. It's the most bizarre situation.
Yes.
I'm glad it doesn't sort of happen later on in life.
Everyone playing the same thing.
Yeah, very weird. But yes, I did some of that and had some success, but you know, there was always the same people who came first or second, so I can still remember who used to come first when I came second and that sort of thing. But I did a great deal amount of that. My teacher was definitely one for seeking out opportunities to perform, and even though they might have been in tiny little venues or very much ad hoc sort of situation, that I got plenty of experience playing, and I think that was the most important thing.
Yes, I can imagine that.
Yeah, I think it's what everyone really needs to do.
Yeah.
If you want to feel comfortable playing to people, then you just got to do a lot.
Yeah. So which composers do you particularly enjoy playing? What are you drawn to?
Well, it's a bit boring, but Mozart, Beethoven and Brahms chamber music is the thing that I live for.
That's not boring at all.
No, but it's not sort of an unexpected answer, is it? That's what I mean. Yes, I mean, of course, all of that, especially Brahms. But along the way, I've had lots of flirtations with some less well-known composers that need a bit of championing.
Yes.
I think I can go through the list of them with you. The first one was Satie, who's sort of on the hypnotic slow music is fairly well known.
Yes.
But I also loved his kind of quirky sense of humour and some of the pieces which are like that.
Yes.
And so that was the first CD I made, was of Satie's piano music. A bit later on.
Well, I was going to talk about, because you've recorded over 70 recordings as chamber music and soloist, and I noticed you've recorded the entire works of John Ireland piano music, and how did that come about? Because that's quite an unusual composer to specialise in. Oh, well,
John Ireland is another one of those composers that I kind of feel that I should champion.
Yes.
I love the music. I love the way that he writes for piano. It's predominantly the sort of music that you have to have a big hand for. There's lots of chordal stuff, but at the same time, that's the very thing that really makes the music so special. Is this kind of crunchy harmony and big chords that move from one to another. And I've always enjoyed playing that from the musical sense, and also the physical sense of sort of just kind of, there's something that feels just right about those particular
getting around it. It's a lot of notes, isn't it? And
then, there are a lot of notes.
It's big music.
There aren't many pieces that one could say are straightforward.
No.
But there's such variety there.
Yes.
And I think the pianists tend to ignore it. It's scandalous, really. I mean, such great music is totally ignored.
It is.
But on the other hand, I think that a lot of pianists think of John Ireland as being a miniaturist, and I think that's really quite a wrong sort of.
Well, he's written some great,
situation.
Huge works.
Well, yeah, there are big pieces. He wrote a phenomenal sonata, and the suite of pieces called Sarnia is really big scale. But there are other pieces, ballads and rhapsodies, which may not be big in terms of minutes, but big in terms of, well, compare them with the Chopin ballads.
Yes.
You know, you would never refer to those as being kind of lightweight in any way. And
I remember the Rhapsody well, yes.
Yes,
playing that.
Oh, yes, well, that's
big
a
piece.
terrific piece. Yeah.
It is, it's great.
And there's one side of Ireland which doesn't fit in at all with that kind of held view of the miniaturist, and that's the very, very dark side, where his music is often influenced by supernatural, the occult, or the sort of idea of visiting places from the past,
That's interesting.
There are some wonderful pieces such as the Ballade and Legend for Piano and Orchestra. It's a terrifying piece.
Yes,
but
yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I mean that's
good.
music that's very close to me.
So, I know you're very much into film music as well, because I think your performance of Michael Nyman's The Piano Concerto with the Old Orchestra won a Gramophone Award. So you obviously love film music. How did this come about? How did your interest in this develop?
Well, I suppose, like a lot of things in my career, they've sort of happened little by little, and the pieces have added up to certain events.
Sure.
And when I first came out of college, I used to work a lot with the saxophonist John Harwell.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And John Harwell was very much a leading member of Michael Nyman's band. So I got to know Michael through that connection. And for a while we did some say that again. And for a while we did some concerts together as two pianists,
Great.
which was interesting and
Yeah.
fun.
Yes, I can imagine.
And I premiered a few of his pieces in various combinations. And so when Naxos approached him to have a new recording of the Piano Concerto, I think my name was probably in the frame because
yes.
of all of that. And so it's
Kind of grew from that, really.
yes, it came out of that. Yes.
And the next thing I want to ask you, because it leads on, is your musical director for Sounds for Silence, which is a fascinating gig, I should say. As far as I understand it, it's a group of live musicians performing for
Yes.
silent films. So
Yeah.
how did this come about?
By accident again.
By accident. Do you
So
compose and
much
arrange everything as well?
Yes, yes. Or in some cases, I take existing music that I think will fit the film well and kind of sort of tailor it to fit, if you like. So
Great.
it just involves finding the right piece and chopping it about a bit in the most subtle way I can. But it came about because I was asked to do a concert of French chamber music, and the
Right.
promoter suddenly said, "We found a film, and it was made in 1925, and we think that there's a score by Eric Satie which goes with the film." So ears pricked up.
Yeah, of
Eric
course.
Satie, yeah, you know, everything was quite interesting there. So we looked at the film, which is called Entr'acte, and it was 25 minutes long. The music that Satie wrote was about 11 minutes long. So there was a problem until I looked into it a bit more, and it's quite a revolutionary score actually that Satie wrote, in that he became the first minimalist composer, if you like.
Yes.
What he did was he'd written 4-bar chunks, which were to be repeated many times before moving on. And occasionally there was the odd sort of hint at what point it should move on, but more often than not it was left to judgment.
Right.
And so we put together a score for this film which fitted well, and did it as the final part of this programme. The reaction was a surprise to me because it went down so well, and promoters from all over the place were asking me if there were any other films that we could do.
Yes.
So I did a lot of research, went to the British Film Institute many times to look at the stuff they'd got there, and was really treated incredibly well. They sort of opened up the vaults and let me look at all sorts of things. The end result was that I amassed together quite a number of films which I could play with French music. At first they were all French films. And so we went around playing concerts which quickly became entire programmes of music with film.
Great.
After the French thing, then we got on to Charlie Chaplin. This was around about the anniversary year of Charlie Chaplin's birth, so there were a lot of dates.
Yes.
So
lots of performances.
Yes, yeah. Mm.
Oh, that's great.
And one particular Charlie Chaplin film has him playing the violin. So I dusted off my violin and started playing again for that film. But within a few years we'd got something like 20, 25 films in the repertoire. Most of them very short, 10 minutes or 5 minutes.
Right.
But a few full scale, like Phantom of the Opera and Nosferatu.
God, yeah. So, how do you think composing, arranging, and obviously improvising has shaped your piano playing? Has it influenced the way you play at all?
I think it probably has.
It must have. It must have done.
Not really consciously, but I've been improvising since I started playing piano, and I think it's something that should be encouraged in children.
Yes, definitely.
Is to do that. My background is both my parents are Irish, and the music that I grew up with, apart from pop music, was Irish reels and jigs, country music. And my dad played the violin. He was an Irish music fiddler.
Yeah.
He had a band, and at the weekends he would always go off and play on his band. And I don't think I was very much older than 9 or 10 when I started to play in his band on the piano.
And that's very helpful, actually.
Yes. I mean, improvising with that kind of music is not difficult. It's 3 chords and it just goes round and round. So I probably gained quite a lot of confidence in making stuff up from that.
Yes.
And I always carried that through and sort of enjoyed messing around. And I composed at home, endless sonatas in C and the first page of a symphony in F, that kind of thing. Never really got anywhere at all.
But it's very useful, no doubt, in it as well. Now, I want to talk to you about your chamber music playing, because you really have accompanied some fantastic musicians, Nigel Kennedy and Sarah Chang and Julian Lloyd Webber. How do you approach chamber music differently to solo? Well, what is the difference musically? Which one do you prefer?
I'm more attuned to chamber music in the end.
Yes.
I think it's probably what I do best. But I don't really approach it that differently, apart from the fact that one's got to integrate the way that you play with someone else. And that, to me, is one of the greatest joys of working with people.
Yeah.
But it's always the finding the point where what you've got to say about the music fits in with the other person, and there's got to be a bit of give on both sides for that to happen successfully. And so it's kind of something that you feel attuned to with somebody straight away, really, or not. And if we've survived the first concert, then I usually enjoy working with people after that.
So what are your future plans for 2013? What have you got coming up?
Well, actually, the next thing I've got to do is to talk to students at the Royal College of Music about John Ireland. So
revisiting John Ireland.
Yes, revisiting that. Then I'm going to Taiwan for a couple of weeks to play chamber music, and I think I'm right in saying that we're going to give the first performance of Elgar's Violin Sonata in Taiwan.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, gosh.
That's one of the interesting things of visiting other countries and bringing British music, which often is not known at all.
No, I can imagine.
And the reaction is always positive. I think we rather put down our own music and don't really give fair due to its quality.
No.
Yes, a number of places where we've played Delius or Ireland or Elgar, and reaction is always, why haven't we had this before?
Yeah, I can imagine. What does playing the piano mean to you?
Oh, well, it's something that I've grown up with, and it's part of my musical makeup. I could imagine a life without the piano just about, but a life without music, I couldn't.
Thank you so much for joining me today, John. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.